Welcome back to Solo Adventures. My name is Livy, and I'm here today with a gamebook review. So, in honor of the spooky season, and because Halloween is right around the corner, I decided that I would review this wonderful little treat of a gamebook, The Ghosts of Craven Manor by Joseph Daniels. So, yeah, spoiler alert. I really like this book. There's so much to like about it, and I'm gonna gush about this book a lot during the review. So, long story short, if you would rather not sit all the way through this review, uh, get this book. Buy this book, if for no other reason but because it's very different from any other game book that I've ever read in my life. And yeah, I'll get into why that is. But first, we're gonna have to get through the stuff that I didn't like. Like pretty much anything else, The Ghosts of Craven Manor is not perfect. I don't know if I've ever read a perfect game book before, but this one definitely has some flaws that are worth pointing out. So, one of the first things I think that's a bit of a problem with this book is the format. So, this book is available in both ebook and physical format, of course, and that's fantastic. But I took a look at the ebook version, and it involves the use of your bookmark function on your Kindle. And because of the way that this book is set up, because of all of the backtracking and the non-linear nature of this book, I think it would be a real pain to play this digitally, at the very least on an e-reader. So absolutely, if you want this book, you should buy the physical copy. Little problem with the physical copy, though, is that, at least in my version, it appears that there was a problem with the kerning. Now, the kerning is the space between the letters, and I don't know if my camera is picking this up very well, but for some reason I think a setting went wrong when getting this one ready for printing, and for some reason the kerning is a bit screwed up, and there's just kind of random weird spacing with the letters that make it a little less than ideal to read. It's not a huge deal. I got over it pretty quickly, but yeah, the font is rather small, and the kerning has got problems. But I do believe that the newer printed editions fix this problem. I'm not entirely sure. So this might not be an issue that you need to worry about. I'm not sure about that, so I would maybe double check the printing before you order this. The other, I guess, kind of practical matter associated with this book that is a little bit problematic is the adventure sheet. So, as far as I can tell, there's nothing in this book that will tell you where you can go to download the adventure sheet, your statistics sheet, as it's called in this book. At the beginning, it says to just copy down the information. So, yeah, you could do that, but there does exist a version of the statistics sheet that you can download. I'm just not sure where it is. The author sent it to me, of course, when I asked for it, so I had that, but for, I guess, just the average person picking up the book, that might be a bit of an issue. Of course, you could always use the old photocopy method. The other problem with the statistics sheet is related to my next point after this, and that's this book could use a good look over by an editor, and a proofreader, the kinds of things that are usually done to put the final polish on books before they go out to print from the major publishers. It's completely understandable why this hasn't been done, because this is just a little indie project by one person. But you're going to notice a couple of little errors here and there. There's a few typos in the book. In the statistics sheet, there's a couple of areas where it's not completely filled out. I'll see if I can explain. So there's a mechanic in this book that requires keeping track of your future knowledge, and it's categorized by letters and by numbers. But there's some future knowledge that you're going to pick up that the author forgot to put a little square in for, so I ended up having to write up and down the edges. Again, it's not a big deal, but it's worth mentioning, I think. Also, because this was a one-man project, I believe, and because there wasn't the benefit of a proofreader or an editor, there's a couple of things that I would almost consider errors in the book. As it says on the cover, it is a ghostly time-traveling game book, and you will be going back in time to the Victorian era, for example. And they were just a couple things that I thought were not very historically accurate in the way the characters were talking, or in the way, I guess, things were being described. For example, there's one section where the book describes a garden party where all of the gentlemen are wearing suits and all of the women are wearing their finest corsets. This is a very easy mistake to make if you're not into the history of fashion, but corsets are basically their undergarments. So that would be similar to saying the ladies were all there in their finest brasiers or their finest panties. It just kind of doesn't make sense. Small error, easy to make. Once again, I think an editor would have caught that. Maybe something to think about for the future editions of this. So this book is, as I said before, it's very unique. It's quite different. It's got mechanics that I've never seen in another game book before, and because of this, there's a lot of rules. There's a lot of mechanics. And it does take a little bit of getting used to when you start playing this book. You'll catch on rather quickly, but there are mechanics that are added on throughout the course of the story that you need to keep track of. And if you're somebody who really prefers a more simple gamebook experience, you might not like that. I personally found it really enjoyable because I like the game aspects of gamebooks very much. There's thankfully a really good tutorial section at the beginning that will help you get used to how all the mechanics work. In my opinion, it kind of feels like a tutorial from a video game. You get to try out the different mechanics, and the book asks you at a couple different points if you understand, and if you don't, you turn to a page where it explains in greater detail. The problem with this is that, like most game books, you're going to die a lot if you're playing this book, or at least if you're not cheating, and you're supposed to start over all the way at the beginning. Now, if you do that, the tutorial section is going to get really, really annoying because it has to do with time travel mechanics. So you're going to be reading the same pages over and over again and jumping back and jumping forward until you get to the point where you can start exploring new content. This is, a little bit annoying. I think that most people are probably just going to kind of cheat to get around this. Just like I did, but I think it should be an official rule in this book that after you finish the tutorial section, you're allowed to start over at a checkpoint. And in this case, every time that I died playing this book, I restarted at section 13 and I just refilled all of my time travel points. Cheating a little bit, but in the long run, I don't think it makes that much of a difference, and you will enjoy your experience so much more. All right, so I think that's most of my complaints. A couple more might pop up as I start talking about this book, but that's most of the flaws that I found in this. But these little things that I pointed out are very far outweighed by the good in this book. This is a fantastic game book, and I'm really surprised that more people don't know about it. The author is rather prolific. He's written quite a few books, I believe. This is the only one that I've read, but after reading this one, I definitely want to read the others that he's written. But for as good as this book is, I'm really surprised that at the time of making this video, there aren't any other video reviews of it online. I think that if you are a fan of gamebooks or you're a gamebook collector, you pretty much need to buy this book for no other reason but that it's just so unique. I have never read another gamebook that uses a time travel mechanic like this, and it uses it so well, and it integrates so smoothly into your experience. It feels really natural after a little while, just jumping back and forth through time. And there's really cool mechanics also that you'll use to discover new times to jump forward and backward to. That brings me to the next thing that I think is one of my favorite things about this book. It's non-linear. After you pass the tutorial section, you're going to end up in this big, spooky, creepy house. And from there, you basically just start exploring. The book doesn't really hold your hand that much. You'll probably not find yourself getting caught and not knowing what to do, but the order of things that you do it's completely up to you. You can just go here, go there. The order of things that you discover and the items that you find could be extremely different from play to play, and I really enjoy this a lot. I cannot personally think of another non-linear game book except for the Fabled Lands series, and to some extent also Destiny Quest, because you can choose which quests you go on, but the freedom there isn't quite as flexible as it is in this book. Because at any given time you can choose to go to another room, you can choose to go into town, go into the shop, go into the hotel or the pub or the library or a bunch of other places in town, or you can decide that you just want to jump back in time to, I think maybe there's 5 or 6 different points in time that you can jump back to. The freedom is just really refreshing, and it's one of the things that I have the biggest problem with a lot of game books, at least in terms of what holds them back, in my opinion, from being a really great medium on par with video games. It's that usual linearity, and I just didn't see that here. It's quite fabulous. And in fact, this time travel mechanic is really cool because it helps to remedy the other problem that game books have, and that's instant death. Now, this book does have instant death, but there's a way to mitigate it. So I think everybody knows how annoying it is when you're reading your typical choose your own adventure story and you have the choice of going left or right. And if you go left, you find a treasure chest, and if you go right, you just fall into a lava pit. And there's nothing you can do, you have to start over. With this book, however, you have a magical time-traveling amulet, so you can undo your bad decisions. So yeah, you could have decided to make the choice that makes you walk into the lava pit, but you can use your time travel points to go back to the section before and make another choice. So, I mean, it's kind of the same thing that I think most people do when playing game books. It's just cheating. You know, you look ahead and you see, oh, I lost, so I'm gonna go back. But in this case, it's not cheating. You can feel good about reversing your bad decisions, and it's a mechanic already built into the game, which is great. Your time travel points are a resource that you have that can be depleted over the course of the game, and it can also be refilled. It's a little bit like, I guess, mana, if you want to think of it that way. But if you want to go back in time, let's say one passage, you made a bad mistake and you fell off the roof or something like that, it'll cost you 2 time travel points to go back and choose another option. Now, sometimes it costs more than 2 time travel points if it's a really big decision, or if there's a really large amount of time that you need to go back with. But you can pretty much always choose differently whenever you make a bad decision in this book. You have 10 time travel points when you begin, and of course, if you don't have any more, then you can't use your abilities anymore, and then you will probably finally die if you make a bad decision. The other great thing about these time travel points is that you can use them not only just to go back and make another decision, you can use them to help change your rolls. So you can add in time travel points to increase your chance of succeeding at a combat or a random thing that you're rolling for. Just like most game books with a real game mechanic, there is going to be that random element, but the time travel points makes you feel like you are more in control, and you have a greater decision about how you want to spend this resource in completing your journey. Speaking of the journey, you're probably curious as to what this book is actually about. So without spoiling too much, the basic idea is that this is a game book that is horror through and through, but it's also crossed with an investigation story. So it's really got a strong mystery element to this. Um, Going through this book, you're really trying to piece together a mystery and figure out what happened that made Craven Manor so haunted as it is. Because, yeah, this is your typical haunted house story. So, you or Dave Ingram, and either your wife or your girlfriend, I can't remember which one it was, have just bought this fabulous old mansion for a suspiciously low price. It's your typical horror movie setup. And surprise, surprise, this mansion is haunted. Like, completely haunted. You don't have to wait long before the scary stuff starts to happen here. It's not like Paranormal Activity, there isn't a slow burn, it's just like wham. Something happens to your wife, girlfriend, and now you have to discover the mystery of Craven Manor. You have to put together all of the puzzle pieces, you need to find the right items, and most importantly, you need to travel forward and backward in time to potentially make decisions that change your current time, or to find information that will help you understand what it is that you need to do. And yeah, you need to solve this mystery in order to save your lady love, as well as the other good spirits that are trapped within Craven Manor, because not all of them are evil. There's a couple of malicious, violent, scary spirits in this house, but there's also like a friendly butler and a cute little girl, and so you feel invested. You have a reason why you want to solve the mystery and why you want to lift the curse, basically, that is over this house. It's not a curse precisely. You'll have to read the book to find out exactly what it is that I mean, but the way that it is, it's pretty much like a curse on this house. So, as I said before, to solve this mystery, your adventure is pretty non-linear. You have this house, and you explore the various rooms, and you find various objects, and you learn things. So yeah, this book is a mystery story, and in a lot of ways, it kind of reminds me also of one of those old point and click adventures, because there's some kind of light inventory puzzles happening here. I'll explain what I mean. So the coolest mechanic of this book is the addition of future knowledge and choices made in the past knowledge, basically. And what will happen is that you will be reading this book and you'll learn something interesting, and then it will say in parentheses, this is future knowledge A4, and the number associated with it is -18. And so in the future, if you reach a point in the story where this knowledge would be useful, the book will say, if you have knowledge A4, you can use it. And the way that you do that is you take a look at the number of the passage. So, you know, like all game books, it's all of the passages are numbered here. And you add or subtract that number that was associated with the future knowledge. So in this case, if we're on passage 200 and we have future knowledge -10, then we would go back to passage 190. It's simple, but in my opinion, really innovative. I at least have not ever seen this used before. I could be completely wrong here. Most of the game books that I play do tend to be a lot of older ones, particularly from the 80s, so maybe this is like a common mechanic, but to me it pretty much blew my mind, and I can really see the possibilities with such a thing. Because with this simple, it's almost like a password. The number that you're picking up is kind of like a password that you need to unlock different parts of the story. So this is also used for items. When you pick up items, they can also have a number associated with them, which means that when you reach certain points in the book, it'll say, if you have a shovel, you can use it now, basically. but it doesn't always tell you when you can use it, so you have to think logically. And sometimes there will be clues in the text that you'll be told to look out for, which I also think is extremely cool. I have to make up something so I don't spoil it. Let's say that the item that you have is a bouquet of flowers, and the text will tell you that anytime in a passage where you read the phrase, "It's sad and ugly in here," this means that you can leave a flower, and then you would take the number associated with your bouquet, and then you would add it to the passage that you're in, and then you would see how the room is affected by how you left the flower there. It's a weird example, but for some reason it's all I can think of right now. That is extraordinarily cool, and it makes you feel like you've discovered a massive secret whenever you pick up an item like this, because now when you read all of the passages, it's never quite the same again, and you just see little nooks and crannies you haven't been able to explore yet, but now you can because you have the right item. In addition to future knowledge, there's choices made in the past, or CMIP, and these are also associated with letters, so choices made in the past, Q, or something like that. And you unlock those by going back in time, making choices, and then the text will tell you that you now have choices made in the past, whatever it is. And then when you go into the future, you'll go to a passage and it will say, if you have CMIP U, go to this page. And that's very clever. There is a combat system in this book, like most game books out there, I feel. But the author straight up tells you that if you don't feel like engaging with the combat mechanic, you don't have to. But basically it will make a lot of abilities that you unlock obsolete, and a lot of items that you find also you won't need because you're not doing the combat. The combat system is kind of unusual. It's a little odd, I guess, and it starts off being pretty much completely random at the beginning, and so it's not like you equip equipment that change your attack, basically. But later on, and I won't spoil how, your power will increase, and you'll be able to use your time travel powers to affect your combat skills. So then you will be able to spend your time travel points, or sometimes the abilities can even be activated for free, to manipulate the battle and to make it a bit more strategic and to mitigate a lot of the luck there. But if the combat is annoying you, if you don't like the random element, you can totally ignore it, and the book is still really fun to play. And part of what makes this book really fun is also what makes it difficult, and that is it's really hard to cheat at this book. So it's easy enough to cheat at the parts where it says, okay, roll a die, and if you get a 1, then you die. And you can just say, oh, no, I didn't do that. But forgetting all of that, you're not going to be able to progress in the story until you get the relevant future knowledge, until you get the items that you need. Because unless you know the number of the passage that you have to travel to, you can't continue the story. So this book is really hard, if not impossible, to cheat at, truly. You're gonna have to do actual investigating, using your actual brain with actual logic to find the answers hidden within this book. And it makes the ending so much more rewarding, I think, when you know that you got there because you didn't just cheat all the way from beginning to end, you actually had to write down stuff and make notes and, explore a little bit. This book will probably take you a really long time to beat, particularly if you're playing it legitimately and if you're not cheating. So I received this book shortly before I went into the hospital, and I played it multiple times there, and like I always say, I don't cheat at game books, so I found myself dying a lot and having to go back to the beginning, and I was okay with that. But I knew that I needed to review this book soon, and I really wanted to get this out before Halloween, So then I started cheating on the combat. Then I started fudging with the numbers a little bit. And even then, I would say that this book probably took me maybe 4 or 5 hours, I believe, to go from beginning to end, just based on all of the backtracking and the puzzle solving that you have to do. So the value for money is really good here as far as game books go. This isn't something you're going to complete maybe even in just an evening. It would be a long, long evening if you tried to do this book all the way from beginning to end. You're going to have to do this over multiple sessions. And the puzzles in this book are really cool. They range from, like I said, the basic inventory puzzles. So you might have to combine one item with another item. So let's say we have peanut butter is +5 and jelly is +6. So that when you combine that together, you get 11. So when you get to at a certain point in the book, you can add 11 to the passage and make a peanut butter jelly sandwich. There's, those inventory puzzles. In the tradition of point and click adventures and those old video games, sometimes the logic is a little bit I mean, there's nothing too crazy in this case, but there's always just one solution, even though if you personally could think of another way to solve an inventory problem or a problem that requires an item. On top of these inventory puzzles, you of course have the puzzles of the mystery and of where to go and who to talk to and what you need to do next. And then there's even more stuff. There's like multiple different codes that you can learn how to decode, and there's even a part where you have to solve a crossword puzzle. This book has a lot of variety with the kinds of things that it asks you to do, and I think that's extremely cool. So who would I recommend this book to? In all honesty, I would recommend it to any person that likes game books. And by that I mean the game books with the actual game in them, basically. If you're somebody who doesn't like the mechanics, if you don't like the puzzle solving, then you're not going to like this book. But I think for everybody else who's interested in the medium and is really interested to see how far you can push what you can do with a game book, I think your mind is going to be a little bit blown about what's possible here and just how unusual and wonderful this adventure really is. It is a horror book, though. So I guess I wouldn't recommend this if you are really sensitive to like violence and scary stuff happening. It's not super graphic. I wouldn't say it's super scary from beginning to end. It's got a creepy atmosphere, but it shouldn't give you nightmares or anything. But yeah, if you don't like ghosts and you don't like murder mysteries, that's another reason why you might not like this book. I personally love this horror creepy vibe. I put on a Spotify playlist with kind of creepy Halloween music and ambience, and I made myself a warm cup of apple cider, and I just had several cozy, wonderful Halloween flavored evenings all to myself, and it was delightful. And this is why I am recommending this book to you right now. And I mean, right now. Halloween is in a couple of days, and this would be the perfect way to spend a Halloween evening, or to either by yourself, or if you've got another person, I could actually see this book being kind of fun to do with multiple people, because you can solve the puzzles together, you can ask each other what you think you should do next. Maybe the other person that you're playing with will have some ideas about how you can do something. But yeah, as far as game books go, this is fabulous, and I really don't think I could ask for a whole lot more. What I could ask for is a little bit more polish, but honestly, it's negligible. The couple of rough edges, with the font, for example, and with some typos and a few other things, they're really easy to overlook. And I think that they'll be also really easy to fix in future editions. So don't let that turn you off. perhaps the best part yet, and the most exciting thing, is that this is supposed to be the first book in a series. I'm very excited. If I'm not wrong, I think there's going to be multiple books released going forward that are based on the endings that you get in this book. Because there are, I think, 5 or 6 different endings, and they're quite different from each other. And honestly, I think this book has okay replayability. I would maybe not replay it immediately, but like if you make this a Halloween tradition and you pull it off the shelf again next year, try it for a different ending. I think you'll still have a good time. So you might have seen my review of Heart of Ice, and that was a review of a book that I also really loved. And I believe that I also said that it was my favorite game book. And I'm having a really hard time deciding now between the two of these. On the one hand, Heart of Ice is really tight. It's kind of short. It's polished to a fine shine. So maybe Heart of Ice is still the more perfect game book, and it's really hard to top that. But in terms of enjoyment, in terms of a sense of adventure, this is my favorite game book. And I honestly can't imagine another one topping it in the near future. If you can find a book that can top this, like, I need to know about it right away. Because, yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you like what I'm doing here, then maybe consider checking out my Patreon, where I make regular posts, and there are also some printable gaming resources and other things that I plan to release over time. And you can also check out the Facebook group for solo adventurers. There's a lot of really wonderful dialogue that is happening there pretty much every day, and I've discovered so many cool new solo games from seeing what people share there. So until next time, stay adventurous.